Well, we started to talk about the other businesses in Fairgrove.
Oh,
Can you tell me
I
who who were
remember
in?
Miss Rathburn.
Okay. And that was to say what store it is now.
It's Batson's. I can't remember what she calls
Oh,
it.
what is the name of it? Once Upon a Time or something like that? Second time around or something like
Where
that?
Marty and
Okay.
where the Batsons have theirs. Then, of course, the post office was, isn't there a barber shop there now?
But who was the postmaster when you were a kid?
John Goodwin.
All the time when you were a kid?
Actually, I still have a letter from Santa Claus
Is
that he
right?
was responsible
Oh
for.
my goodness.
Then there was the locker plant because we didn't have deep
And
freeze.
who was in there then?
Bill and Mabel Kehoe. And you rented a locker box and you put...
Nobody had a home freezer.
No. And Mom would put up strawberries. She canned a lot. And then we should freeze corn. I remember the corn, the strawberries, and we'd have meat in there. And if you wanted some meat or something, you got the key and went down and opened your locker box. Woods, there was the American Legion. Oh, and then at that time,
In the garage.
the garage was Troy Adams. Actually, I have a roll top desk that came out of that
Is
garage.
that right?
That one in there. My aunt and her husband bought it after Troy.
And your grandpa helped operate it earlier
And
than
we
that.
think that was in there when they bought it. So I think that is
It goes
my
way
grandfather's
back. Okay.
when he had it. Okay, so, but Troy Adams had it then, didn't he? Yes, Troy
Yes.
did. And then where the pizza place is now, that extension wasn't there, but that was Morse Plumbing. And he had the first television in town.
Warren Morris.
Warren Morris. And it was kind of up high in the center of that room, and anybody could come in and watch these grainy old shows. And they lived upstairs.
Of the bank.
Then there was the Hood's was just down past there. And then Lucas's garage. And at the bottom of the hill was the MFA station.
Okay, the station, yeah.
And
What was that thing called? Who were those people that lived across from the high school with the filling station?
Pratt's. Pratt's.
But we used to go there a lot. You used to, at lunchtime during high school, you could leave school. And we'd go over there a lot and eat. And sometimes I'd go home and eat.
Were you involved in the big situation where the kids would come up on the square and eat, and the school board said you weren't going to do that anymore?
I was.
You want to explain that any further? Were you a runaway?
No, I wasn't a runaway.
But you were there.
I was too afraid to do something like that. Oh, I was there. I was still in school, and
I don't think I was there.
that we had always been able just to go up there and eat. We would even go in the MFA and have sandwiches,
Just
make
hang
our
out.
sandwiches, my friends and I. And all of a sudden they decided that we should not leave the campus. We, rightfully so, shouldn't be crossing 125 because there was a lot of traffic. Well, that did not set well with
Rebellious teenagers.
rebellious teenagers. So they got together, and the boys mostly. I don't know of any girls.
I haven't heard about girls, but the boys.
Decided they were going to go anyway. And some of the teachers, Gilbert Barkley, I know he knew, but they just waited for them. And when they came back, I guess they nabbed them and lined them up and got a paddling. And some of the main culprits got away.
Yeah, I know one of them that did.
Yeah.
I'm going to interview him too.
Okay.
Which one was that?
Oh, I'm not going to rant out.
You
You know,
Watch the video.
you know him.
I was out of school then. I was not around there then.
But nobody went again after that.
And-
It was a big to do.
They made the newspaper, didn't they?
Parents objected.
And there was a big school board meeting after that.
It was.
There was a big row about it.
But the administration did win, and it was beginning to get dangerous. Earlier it was not, but then it was.
Now you lived not too far from the square on Halloween night. Did you ever see any action out there on Halloween
my.
night?
I did. A lot.
She was probably involved in it. I was
doubt
never
it.
involved
I
in
was.
it.
You were?
Yes. We always just trashed the square. I mean, just trashed it. Cause I ran around. I was in high
With
school.
a wild crowd.
Considered wild crowd. It wouldn't be today, but Donna Joe, me, Sue Harmon, and
Barbara,
Barbara
Joe Cannon.
and Joe Canifax all ran around together. It was a wide variety, age difference in all of us. I happened to be the youngest, and Joe was the oldest.
You were too young.
I was too young, but when she went on dates, I was sent with her on dates and left at the cafe, which was one of the buildings. And then she'd go on, they'd come back and pick me up.
You were supposed to be the chaperone, but they dumped you.
They did.
Anyway, I remember somebody, I don't know if it was the sheriff then back then or what, but they got after, we went running through Granny's Cafe into the back and out the back, and we hid back in there.
But now Granny
Yeah.
was some of the boys. Well, Donnie Williams' grandmother
Okay.
and, Donna Chapman's husband, Jim Cobbin, which is part of that group, his grandmother. So,
But that was in our later years, my later years.
Tell these boys and whoever what was trashing the square. How did
Oh,
you?
we would drag all kinds of toilets, outhouses, just anything we could find, bales of hay.
If it wasn't nailed down, you grabbed it and hauled it to town and dumped
Yeah.
it in the middle of Fairgrove Square.
Yes.
and it was a big deal the next morning to get up and go to see what was down there.
And then you got to clean it up.
No,
No.
I didn't, because I
So-
didn't participate.
I never cleaned it up either. I don't know who cleaned it up.
But you put everything that you didn't want hauled off up. And until just a few years ago by Halloween, I had everything that could be hauled off put up. I don't do that anymore, but I did.
You think the children of today have finally got past that?
I think so. But it was, and nobody, it was more tolerant time.
Well, the parents had done it when they were kids, and they just let their kids go ahead, even though it was destructive to a certain extent.
Right.
They didn't break windows. They'd just haul a bunch of junk in, and
And
then
then you'd have to
Yeah.
come and get your junk if you were missing anything.
it was just part of Halloween.
But, well, by tolerant, there was a man in Fairgrove who didn't have drive in his car. All he had was reverse.
Yeah, tell me about that.
And he would
Yes.
reverse all the way. I'm not going to tell you where he lived,
Okay.
but he would reverse quite some distance all the way to town. And people would say, well, I really can't tell the story without saying, here comes Otis.
Oh.
Get out of the way, move your car. So everybody would go move their car. Otis would back to town
They knew where he was going to park.
and do his business, and then he'd back home. And nobody thought a thing about it. Nobody would have even thought of giving him a ticket for backing to Fairgrove.
Some fella told me that his grandpa didn't have brakes in his car, didn't have an emergency brake, and maybe it was, well, for some reason it wouldn't stop. And he had a rock out there in front of one of the stores, and he would always pull up there and make sure that rock was there. And when he was ready to go, he could back up and somebody get that rock out. And then there was Clark Butts who would drive to town.
I
Do you
remember
have any
him.
Clark Butts stories?
I just remember him, then the gas pump. It was one of those, the gravity type that, with the globe on top.
My goodness, you
And
go
it
back
was-
a ways.
I do. I remember him pulling up there to get gas. That was back when you could have your gas pump right on the porch of your business. I remember he and his dad, Polly, coming to town in that old black car, getting their gas there.
I
That's
just
basically.
remember Dad telling stories about Clark and Bully Butts.
They were town characters,
Mm-hmm.
even though the town was full of characters.
Yes, oh, it was.
The
Do you-
fir-
Go ahead.
first time I ever saw him, Kathy Huff and I were coming back from town with our kids. And Kathy was driving and we got behind Clark in an old black car going about 20 miles an hour on the highway. And there was no place to pass on Old 65, so we just stayed behind him. And he turned off right at Fairgrove, so we followed him on 125 and then up the hill to my house. And he had turned in front of the pizza place. and there was a beauty shop there. D-Berry?
Yes, there
yeah.
was a big.
And there was a woman in the chair who had parked her really nice car out in front, and it was in Clark's way. And he bumped it in the back. And apparently they were in there watching this through the window. And he backed up and he bumped it again, and she came running out with curlers and stuff all over her hair and got in that car and moved it out of his way because he was just going to keep on coming. That's the first time I ever saw